Welcome to the Write, Publish, Market podcast. If you're an entrepreneur considering writing a book to serve your business, you're in the right place. Or maybe you've already decided. That's even better. I'm your host, Jody Brandon, book publishing partner for entrepreneurs and 20-year veteran of the book publishing industry. On the Write, Publish, Market podcast, in addition to learning from me, you'll meet entrepreneurs just like you and hear about their experiences as we explore all facets of writing, publishing, and marketing a book that will help your business grow in ways you might not even have dreamed of yet. Today, we are welcoming Ruthie Sterrett to the podcast, and I'm so excited to talk to her. Ruthie is the founder and CEO of the Consistency Corner, a full-service marketing agency that provides CMO-level strategy and done-for-you implementation for CEOs ready to take off the marketing hat. With 15 plus years of experience and wins like taking a $20 million retail brand to $100 million, Ruthie is uniquely qualified to help CEOs and business owners leverage marketing differently and get back to leading their company and serving their clients. She's known for her optimistic and upbeat personality, paired with a solution-finding growth mindset. Love that. And in her spare time, Ruthie loves cheering on the Purdue Boilermakers while raising her family in sunny Florida. So welcome, Ruthie. I'm so happy to talk to you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be a really fun conversation.
As you know, I am a huge fan of the 9 grid. So I'm happy to be talking about all that good stuff with you today. So let's talk for the people who, maybe skipped over the introduction of this podcast. I hope no one did that, but just give everybody like the quick and dirty, who you are, who you serve, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm Ruthie Sterrett. I am a marketing strategist and I own an agency called the Consistency Corner that I founded to give working moms a better life, which you're like, wait, how in the world does marketing have anything to do with that? Well, we serve our clients in helping them take social media off their plates because we don't all have the capacity or desire to spend time doing that. But it is really important in the world of marketing because people are on social media. But also, I founded an agency when I left my corporate job because I wanted to work, but I wanted flexibility. And I wanted to give that opportunity to other women so that they could work in their zone of genius, but also be there for drop off and pick up and, field trip days and all of those things. And when I first started my agency, I kind of struggled with how do we combine that passion for helping working moms with social media? And I couldn't quite figure out what my niche was. And finally, I realized at the end of the day, my clients and the people that I want to serve are brands that help moms. So it doesn't matter if you are a product-based business, a service-based business, B2B, B2C, if you are passionate about supporting working moms or moms in general, you believe in fair play, you are all about dismantling the patriarchy, and you're a champion of conscious capitalism, you're my people, and I want to help you with strategic social media.
I love that. I love that you also talked about the capacity and the desire, because it really is both, right? And I think that kind of leads us right along our path of what I want to talk to you about. So I want to get into the nitty gritty of the 9 grid and the 3 grid and the pin posts and all of that. But Can we start a little bit broader with marketing in general? Because I've heard you say marketing is not social media alone. And I think that that's a trap that a lot of us, especially in the online business world, just because we're we're just consuming so much social media. I think that that's a trap we can fall into. So could you talk about that a little bit? Social media is not marketing.
Yeah. My favorite analogy is that a coffee cup isn't coffee. It's a container, and we can fill that container with different things. Same with social media. It's one container for our messaging. And just like we can't live on coffee alone, we might try, but we can't. We need water and food and sometimes a glass of wine. Our business cannot survive from a marketing perspective on social media alone. We don't own that audience. The algorithm is constantly changing.
Yeah.
You've got to have other places that people can connect with you and other places where you're attracting new eyes to your business, nurturing those relationships, and converting. We have to use social media because it is a piece of the puzzle that, 3 billion people are on, but it's not the whole thing, just like your coffee cup is not the only thing that you're drinking out of each day.
Right. I love that. Yeah. Well, and let's face it, like you can survive on coffee alone for a little while, but eventually it's going to catch up with you and you're going to
Yes.
get dehydrated and somebody in your life's going to be like, "Hey, put down the coffee cup and like have a glass of water."
Yeah. I heard an analogy. It was on an Oprah podcast and it was talking about social media as a consumer and how we know that we could use it as a tool to connect with each other and to build relationships. But it's kind of like gas station food. Like it's a quick fix. It's going to sustain us for a minute, but we always want more.
Right.
And it doesn't sustain us for the long term.
Yeah.
And long term in excess, it's not healthy.
Right.
Just like, we need to connect with people in real life. We need to have face-to-face conversations. We need to do something other than social media. It has a place. It just can't be the whole thing.
Right. And it can't be the end game, right? Because like you said, we don't own it. Like we've got to get people back to something that we own.
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot more. I'm sure this is way more your day to day than it is mine. And so I'm sure you're seeing it way more too. Like a lot more people I've noticed even on social talking about their email lists. Like,
Yes.
Hey, this is what's on my email. Like, this is what we're talking about this week in the email newsletter. You're signed up, right? If not, like click here and with a special link and the whole thing. And I think that's so smart.
What's interesting, like I personally, I'm terrible at email. I have 10,000 unopened emails, but I can always go to my email and search for something. Yeah. And even when I see someone's name in my inbox, if I don't click on it and open it, it's a touch point. It's another touch point with that person and I'm remembering them. Where social media, whether or not the algorithm serves it to me, who knows? It's impossible to search for things. There was somebody, people will share things and I'm like, oh, I want to go back and learn that. And like, well, who was that?
Who was that?
What was that they shared, And when it's in your email, now you as the consumer own it and you can easily find it. So email is such a powerful tool that I agree. I'm glad to see more people talking to their audience on social about connecting via email.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a no-brainer, right? It's such a no-brainer, but yet somehow it's taken us this long to figure it out. But yeah, I'm happy about it too. So, well, it also triggers for me. Sometimes I'll think like, oh yeah, I want to follow that person when I'm in my the 30-minute engagement period I give myself like a couple times a day. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I want to get on that person's list or, oh, I want to check out that download or whatever. But then you scroll right by and forget about it. But when they're talking about getting on the email list, it's like, okay, I'm going to click that. They're making it so easy, right? I'm going to click this link right here. And then I'm going to get right back to Instagram and get back to my engagement. So,
yeah. And, I've talked to business owners who have great emails. And I'm like, are you talking about your email list on social media? Are you talking about it in stories? And they're like, no, people already know. I'm like, no, people don't know. Yeah. And you literally, if this is true of email, this is true of social, this is true of long form content. Like if you're not sick of talking about it, nobody knows. So you have to keep talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that we all know that as business owners, right? But you constantly need to be reminded of that. And I think that's one of those cases of like, like the cobbler shoes or like whatever, right? I mean, like I would never say to one of my business friends, oh, you're talking about that too much.
Right.
Then I'm constantly telling myself like, oh, don't talk about your book again. You talked about that the other day. Like, no, you've got to keep talking about it.
Yes.
So, okay. But the flip side is social media can be exhausting, especially for those of us who don't have the desire to do it all the time. So enter the 9 grid, enter the 3 grid, enter the pin post. I want to hear about all of them and I want to hear when we should be using different ones. So tell me all the things.
If you're not familiar with a 9 grid, which to be honest, most people who can benefit from it have no idea what it is. So you're probably not, and that's okay. But what a 9 grid is it's when we intentionally turn your Instagram into like a mini website where we turn the first 9, at least 9, it could be 12, it could be 15, but like rows of posts into a design that all fits together almost like a magazine cover or a brochure or a billboard. And that content is really intentional in terms of it tells in the post who you serve, how you help them, ways that you can connect outside of social media, the problems that you solve, the transformation that's possible from connecting with you or working with you. And we do it in a way that when someone lands on your profile, because visually it's all laid out as a puzzle, it's clear that it's all meant to be consumed together. And so then you don't have to post anymore. So it's like a set it and forget it strategy. But then when people hit your Instagram, they're getting exactly what they need versus the last thing I posted was my dog, or I can't remember the last time I talked about my freebie and they've got to scroll way down. Like it's all right there. And that is for the person who is like, either I don't have time to post, I don't want to post, or, or maybe Instagram's not my primary platform. Maybe I hang out on LinkedIn, or I hang out on TikTok, or I hang out on Facebook, but it gives us an Instagram presence that like checks the box of professional, intentional, strategic, without constant posting. And people are like, okay, but what about the algorithm? Like, don't I have to post to feed the algorithm? Okay. Do you want to feed the algorithm? Like, let's talk about that first, And within Instagram, there are other algorithms. There's reels, there's stories. And so I work with my clients to figure out what's the right mix for you, for your business goals, for your bandwidth. And then we can put the 3 grid up or the 9 grid up, and we can leave it for 6 months, a year, depending upon what's going on in your business. And then you just don't have to think about that anymore. So it's great for somebody who does not have the time or the capacity or the energy to constantly be posting on social media. And it's great for the person who maybe even just needs to like step away for a season. We're getting ready, as we're recording this, we're getting ready to get into the holidays, which a lot of people are really busy, or for people in the summer, maybe your kids are out of school and you have less time. That can be a temporary thing that you put up for a while. So then you just don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah. And so when I started doing 9 grids for people, I just love doing them because I love pulling all the pieces and parts from you, from your business, from the way you help people, and putting that into a cohesive package that people can really consume and like get it right then and there, right? But I realize it's not for everyone. And when it's not right for you is maybe if you have a product-based business that has new arrivals all the time, like you need to be posting about that constantly. Yeah. Or maybe you are getting ready to launch a new product or a new project, and you need to be posting to test the messaging. Like we need to be creating content because creating actually helps you work through your messaging. Refine it. Yeah. But it's maybe not the right time for a 9 grid. So if it's not the right time for a 9 grid, the alternate is a 3 grid, which everybody can really benefit from. And a 3 grid is what you mentioned, pinned posts. Okay. But it's pinned posts designed strategically to go together across those 3 squares. So again, when somebody hits your profile, it's like, oh, I need to look at these. They are an important message here. And that message could be, my book is available, get it now. Yeah. Or that message could be, I'm speaking at an event, come to this time-sensitive event. Or the 3 grid could just be like hey, I want to make sure the most important information is always at the top because I'm posting sporadically. And then we have all of that kind of who I am, how I help you, and where we can connect in those 3 posts.
Okay. And are those 3 posts designed visually as one, like a puzzle, just like the 9 grid? Or
they can be. I like to make sure that they look cohesive together. I personally like to make sure that they can stand on their own, because when you post them in the feed, people are going to see them alone. Mm-hmm. Also, if we design them so that they could stand alone, you can repurpose them on other platforms. Platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook, where they're not ever going to sit together in a grid. But certainly you can do just like a logo across the top and then know that the caption has the information that people need to read.
Hey, business owner, if you've listened to this podcast for a while now, you know how important I think a writing routine is. Preferably one that's in place before you begin that book writing, though it's never too late. So if you'd like some guidance in developing one, I've created the Ready, Set, Write Challenge for you to help you figure out where, when, and how you're the most productive writer. That's going to make your book writing so much more efficient. Check out jodybrandoneditorial.com/ready-set-write. Now back to the show. Okay. Would you say like a book launch, for example, since a lot of our listeners are business owners writing books or thinking about it, or they have books already, a 3 grid versus a 9 grid, maybe? Like for when the book is launching?
I think when the book is launching, that's a great way to do it. Because I think when the book is launching, you're trying to create buzz. You're wanting to, tag collaboration partners. You're wanting people to share posts and things like that to really get the word out. So at that point, I think a 3 grid is great. I think after your book has been out a while, you're still, doing speaking engagements, you're obviously still promoting it.
Sure.
That's when a 9 grid might make a lot of sense if you don't enjoy creating social media content.
Yeah. I will say, in the interest of full disclosure, that we worked together earlier this year on my 9 grid because for that exact reason. Like, I've got things that I know I should be talking about more. I don't want to be posting nonstop. I love being in stories, but posting to the feed is not my thing. And a lot of my people come from LinkedIn. A lot of my clients come from LinkedIn. So Instagram for me, I want it to be more fun. Like I wanted, and it was feeling not fun at all because I, not only didn't have the capacity, so I was forcing myself to do it, but I didn't have the desire to do it either. And now, like I've told you this, I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with my 9 grid.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the questions I get a lot is like, well, how often do I have to update it? How long can I leave it up? And, I like to ask business owners to look at it quarterly.
Yeah.
If after 90 days, the content that is in there is still relevant and things have not changed in your business, leave it up. There's no reason to take it down. But if you are launching something new, your capacity maybe has changed. You are testing, talking to a different audience, or you're tweaking some messaging. Let's do another one, or take it down for a little while. And when I say take it down, I don't actually take it down. Like, it just moves on down the grid as we start posting new things. But you can even take a 9 grid that you put up, and you don't have to start from scratch when you do a new one. You can just tweak what you already have and update it and repost it.
Yeah. It's going to drive me bonkers that I can't think of who this was, but I saw a 9 grid all about someone's book.
Okay.
So it was past launch. So, but they're using a 9 grid as a book marketing strategy, which I think is so smart. They've got, like, whereas I have like a post all about the podcast, they've got a post like for each of the parts of the book, like it's so smart. And then with book reviews, like all the things that we do, or we did in my 9 grid and you do with all of the people you work with.
Yes.
But all about the book. And
thinking about somebody post-launch, like this is a great example of, okay, you are a business owner, you have other things going on.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to use your social media to maybe talk about those other things. But in your bio, you can have author of at Write Publish Market, and then it links to that profile.
Yeah.
And it's immediate credibility because now your book has its own profile, right?
Yes. So smart. Yeah. I'm going to have to find let's see if I can remember, like we were just talking about, and I'll put it in the show notes if I can find it. But yeah, it was done really well. And I thought that was so smart. I never thought about doing a whole 9 grid for the book, but that's a great idea.
Yeah.
As I'm in the process of updating and revising my book, the wheels were definitely turning. So, okay. So pin posts, just to clarify, because I'm, not a social media guru. Pin posts are the same as a 3 grid. I'm just using 2 different terms.
Yes. The only reason that I would maybe say they're different is I consider a 3 grid when you intentionally design those 3 posts to
cohesive
go together.
Unit.
Where pin post could be like, I pinned a post from April, I pinned a post from October, I pinned a post from last week, because they happen to be like my best performing posts or what I think is the most important. Where a 3 grid, we're really intentional on first post is typically an intro.
Got it.
Second post is generally an offer or a free resource. And then third post is the other way around, either the offer or the free resource. And that's for somebody who's doing like an evergreen 3 grid. If it's a launch 3 grid, it's going to be a little bit different. If it's a time sensitive event 3 grid, it's going to be a little bit different.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. So like quarterly-ish review the 9 grid and see what needs to be updated. So the 3 grid's a little bit different because it could be an evergreen versus a live.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a friend who we did a 9 grid for her for one of her profiles, because she runs a couple different businesses. So we did a 9 grid, and she's like, I love the 9 grid so much, but I'm getting ready to launch something. And I'm like, we can put a 3 grid on top of the 9 grid. And then the 3 grid can be pinned because it's for her, it was time sensitive. It was a masterclass that she was promoting. But then when the masterclass is over, we just take it down, and now we're back to our 9 grid.
Okay. Never would have thought of that.
Right. It's almost like thinking about it think about it as a website. Like we can update the hero on your website, or we can
Right.
update that ribbon across the top with like the time sensitive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the website is just going to stay pretty much as is. And, another thing is like a lot of times people updating your website is a big lift. You maybe have to get a developer involved or a designer, or it's just a huge time sensitive project for you. You can usually update your Instagram a lot faster and easier.
Yes.
So if you're wanting to do a brand refresh or some rebranding, creating a 9 grid is even a great way to like test that out before we take on the whole big overhaul the website project.
Right. Smart. Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of using Instagram and social media in general as an experiment, like within you. And I know that like that, I mean, when I was a newer business owner, that was scary to me. Now I think it's a great idea. But yeah, I recognize that that's scary for people sometimes because there's that tendency to think like, oh, I don't want to put it out there until it's ready, or I don't want to put it out there until it's perfect. But yeah, using it as a testing ground for messaging, all of it is so smart.
The high volume nature of social media and the fact that it is a digital product, it's not your book. It's not being printed. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Are there people for whom you would say a 9 grid is don't do a 9 grid? I mean, anybody can do it, right? Or
anybody can do it. Okay. I mean, I would say don't do it if you love creating social media content. Don't do it because if creating social media posts bring you joy, keep creating social media posts. If you don't have your offers or your messaging figured out, I would not invest the time to creating a 9 grid because honestly, creating content helps you clarify what you want to say.
That's true.
And so if you aren't 100% sure, you could create a 9 grid as an exercise, but you're going to have to create another one. You're going to have to change it because things are going to change.
Right.
And so if you're not really clear on that yet, keep creating content because that'll help you get clear.
Yeah. That's a good point too. Oh my gosh. I could talk about this all day. I mean, I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with the way they look.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with like going through them post by post and seeing who like puts what post like ahead of another. It's just, I find them absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And you can learn so much so quickly about a business and a business owner.
Yes.
That, they're incredible.
Yeah. And the thing about business versus business owner, this is something that I had a conversation with a client with recently. She owns 3 businesses and she does a lot of speaking engagements. And so her publicist was like, listen, you need a personal profile because people are looking up your name.
Yeah.
They're not just looking up your businesses, especially as we're getting you speaking gigs. And she's like, I don't want to manage another Instagram. And so that's where her PR person said, let's do a 9 grid.
Yeah.
And I did one for her. And it was so fun because she's like, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I've got this big, long story and history. I have no idea how to pull that into 9 posts. I mean, to be fair, we did 15 for her, but it was a lot of fun pulling those pieces and parts together to tell a cohesive story in a way that makes sense. And then that way, all those different profiles can point back to each other.
Yeah.
And you can tag her own personal profile in business posts if people want to learn more, or if she's on kind of a PR tour or whatever.
Yep.
Then you can go back and forth to them and people can, really get into the nitty-gritty with that content.
I love that. I also found, as someone who's done it, the exercise of figuring out like you said, sometimes you do 12, sometimes 15, but just figure out like, okay, we've got these 9 or mine's 12, but like these 12 pieces, what are the things that we want to include? Like, yes, no brainer. We have to have an intro post. We have to have a post about the book. We have to have a post about the podcast. But like, what are the other things that I really want people, if they don't go anywhere else, if this is what they're going to see to learn about me and what I stand for and what I do and how I help people, what are the most important things? Like that was a really important clarifying exercise, even for someone years into business.
Yeah. Mission, vision, values are really, really important things. Also, like thinking about and just kind of doing some brainstorming on like, what are some of your maybe polarizing or spicy opinions, like things that like this, I'm going to die on this hill. I'm okay with it. And then that kind of goes back into those deeper values. And because our values are going to attract our right people.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure that those are weaved into the content so that the people who are reading it can say like, yes, you're my person. And as we get into the world of AI driven content, I mean, as a content creator, I can spot AI written content like a mile away.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't use AI. I do, but it's important to have the right input to get out the output. And that's the part that is kind of the pre-work. I have a 9-grid planning pack that kind of walks you through some of that pre-work because you need to get all that stuff out of your head and on paper.
Yeah.
And then we can leverage AI to help us craft and weave. But those really foundational pieces of our business are so important. And that's one of the things where like, I get it. Thinking about your mission, your vision, your values, putting language to that, maybe it's not as fun as picking out your brand colors.
Right.
Just like when you build a house, like digging the foundation is not as sexy as picking out, light fixtures.
Right.
But without the foundation, it's just going to crumble. And so we have to spend time on that stuff.
Yeah, it's such important work. It's such important work.
And with a book, I love that you kind of coach your clients around where does your book live on the bookshelf and what problem does it solve?
Right.
If we can tell tell AI that as we're mapping out a 9-grid, it's going to help everything come together so much easier and really achieve that intent that we're looking for.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's the foundational piece of a book, writing a book, just like the foundational piece. Yeah, it's not necessarily as fun or as sexy, but if you don't have it dialed in, you're going to be sorry later on. For sure. For sure. Oh my gosh, this was such a fun conversation. I want to include like a gazillion examples of 9-grids in the show notes, just so people, if they haven't seen how fun they are, they can check them out. I don't let anyone leave the podcast though without giving me a book recommendation. So what you got?
Okay, so I just finished Sharon Says So on Instagram, who is America's government teacher.
Yes.
She wrote a book called The Small and the Mighty that highlights Americans that changed the course of history, but like you maybe didn't hear about them or didn't read about them. And I just finished that and it was fantastic.
I just finished that also and it was I'm a huge proud governor.
Yes.
Yes. The stories in there are so great. They're so great. I mean,
they are really good. And then what's really interesting, so I finished that book and then just last night we watched a documentary on Netflix called Bowling Alone. And it was a book that was written several decades ago. And it's a lot about civic engagement and participation in community groups and things like that. And, kind of the premise of it and the end of it is that like the people that can make a difference are us. And it doesn't mean we have to go out and do a huge thing, but like one small thing can literally change the course of history. And that's what Sharon's book was really all about, that like these people did things that were maybe small to them in the moment, but really made a difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good one. She's such a great person to follow too, I think, just as an aside, because I feel like so many people, when they're talking about politics and government and that, are very judgy and preachy about it. Yeah. And she's just like, no, this is like, explains it. I mean, you can tell she was a middle school teacher, right? Because my sister is a middle school teacher and that's how she explains things too. And I'm like, how are you not getting worked up about this? And she's like, no, there's no need to get worked up about this, Jody. It's just like XYZ.
Yes. I'm just teaching you. I'm just explaining it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's a great recommendation. Okay. Thank you for that. Before I let you go, Ruthie, where's the best place for people to connect with you, find you, all the things?
Yeah. So I hang out on Instagram primarily at the Consistency Corner. And then you can learn more about doing your own 9-grid or having me work with you on a 9-grid or other social media support packages at theconsistencycorner.com.
Awesome. We're going to include all your information in the show notes. And I can say personally, I attest to your work. It's amazing. And I'm obsessed with you. So.
Yes, I love it. I love doing the 9-grid project so much. And I will tell people, just kind of as a caveat, I want you to know this ahead of time. If you decide you want to do one on your own, it's a 15-hour project. Like, know that going into it, because for me, who does them all the time professionally, like it takes me 10 to 12 hours. So it's going to take you 15 18, 20. So just know that going in, that this is not like I'm going to throw up a post in 20 minutes kind of project.
Yes. I can also attest to that because I definitely started and stopped doing it myself about 10 different times before finally I was like, okay, Jody, you need some help.
Yes.
So no, this was great. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Write, Publish, Market podcast. I know just how busy your schedule is as a business owner, so I'm grateful you've taken some time out of yours to journey into the world of book publishing with me today. If you are looking for even more book writing, marketing, and publishing information and support, check out my mentorship membership, the Author Entrepreneurs Lab, where each month we take a deep dive into one element of the book world with education, a Q&A session with me, your book publishing expert, resources, co-writing times, and so much more. You can learn more at the link in the show notes. I hope to see you inside the lab.